Hi, here's a wee story of the past that happened down in Bainsford, Langley's area. I'll do it with some photos here, give you an idea of what it was like when I was a kiddie. I think most of you will recognise this photograph here. It's in David's Lawn. That's the old janitor's house for the old Langley school. It was in the back there. But I'm trying to explain what happened before the school, that house was there. And it's this bit here. You all know what that is, I take it. It's an air raid shelter. Now most of you will know that these were built, 1940s, maybe before that. All the way down of Abbotsford Street from the shop in Hawk Street, all the way up to David's Lawn. At the bottom garden of all the houses there, they had these air raid shelters. At one time, the occupants of the houses treated them as an extra living room because they had carpets in them. They used to paint the inside. And some of them, in fact, one of them I actually saw with wallpaper on it. They were trying to make it as comfy as they could with a couple of these wee camp beds sort of thing. But they've all been more or less left, like this one here, for instance. And you'll pass it every day, you'll see it. But that was Abbotsford Street. Now they were built in the houses, as I say, from where the shop is in Hall Street, all the way up to what we called the Cinder Hill. That was the old Murchison iron foundry up there. There was a hill there, all full of all the rubbish for the factory and so on. We used to go up there and try and collect scrap iron so we could take it to this scrappy and get a couple of bob. But however, that's what was left all the way up Abbotsford Street, all these. But Cross Street, Cobblebury Crescent and Hawk Street, in that area, those houses were just being completed at that time. That would be about, 1943, I would think. But they didn't get any air raid shelters. They got these type things. But the bit is, you had to build them yourself. Remember the old Anderson shelters? This is what they were. Corrugated iron, some of them dug a hole and built them like that. This one here, we had one of these exactly the same as that, what my dad built at the back of our house in Cross Street. Now I know for a fact there is one left in Hawk Street. I'm not going to tell you the address, it would be unfair. But there is one there, the old Anderson shelter. And it was more or less converted into a wee workshop. And the chap at that time, he was a relative of mine, used to repair televisions. And he used it as a wee workshop. Me, on the other hand, I used the one at the back of my house, or my dad's house, to park my motorbike. And it was like that when we left that home. So I don't know whatever happened to it. But in those days, you had to do it yourself. These started to spring up down Cobblebury, Cross Street, and a couple in Hawk Street. But I've never seen any recently, so I take it they've all been whipped down. But apart from this one that I know of, it's in Hawk Street. Now at that particular time, the war was still on. There was about a couple of years to go. So I can remember when Facebook started, I joined Facebook and I had a lot of photos, and one photograph I had, it was at the top of Abbotsford Street, so it says on the photo, and it was a barrage balloon. You've seen these big white balloons up there, and the cable coming in, and they're more or less tied to the ground. to deter aircraft coming near the bloody place, if you know what I mean. Then there was a kind of control wagon at the side of it, on the ground, of course. Never forget that. But this here, as you'll know, this was the airport down in Grangemouth. That's no far from us in Langley's, as most of you will know. And I know this place more or less like the back of my hand, or I did do. And this is an old stock photograph. These are the kind of aircraft that we used to see flying over Bainsford, Langley's and all that sort of stuff, going down towards Grangemouth, and they were going there to the airport. As you can see, they're all biplanes, double wing efforts. And as you can see in this photograph here, this is from inside one of the hangars, and about here somewhere. And you can see, it looks like Spitfires to me, but then again, I'll leave that to the boffins to decide. This is where they were all maintained in this building, these buildings here. But sometimes we used to see a thing like this. I can remember seeing these things flying over the David's Loan area going towards Grangemouth, like jets. But I never knew what the heck they were at that time. But my brother was in the Royal Air Force and he was stationed in Germany. And when he came back on leave, I'd tell him about this, and he knew everything about these aircraft, the RAF. He joined the Air Force, and he knew everything about planes and so on and so forth. He was dead daft about the Royal Air Force. But anyway, that's another story. But that gives you an idea. These things used to fly over Falkirk and so on. But this place here, as you know, we used to go down here and learn to drive. Maybe some of you have done the same. Because the airport closed because of a fire. There was a fire in the control room there, I believe, and it was all gutted. They never ever rebuilt it, and there is photographs on the internet about the fire. You see some quite good footage, so to speak. But they closed it down, and these two big hangars were given to, well, not given, they were more or less rented out to, I believe it was Smithy Madison. I used to do a wee bit of work with them to get, so we could get money for the gallery and Bainsford Langley's. But it ended up, they used that as storage sheds. And even till this day, if I remember right, at the back, on the sand wall inside, there's an operational board actually on the wall, painted on the wall, if I remember rightly, regarding the routes and the flights for the different aircraft in and out sort of thing. And I believe it's still there. But now, here, you probably know there's an aircraft, I think it's a Spitfire, so everybody can see it. There's plaques there with names and photographs and so on. Quite interesting to see. But as I said, all the runway here, people used to use this to learn to drive, and that's where I learned. Police didn't bother you. In fact, they asked you, more or less, the police says you should go down and keep off the roads where we lived. But people used to have cones there and used to drive all the way and all over the place. Then we'd go back home. Now, the units are still there. They're still used for storage for various companies now, but gives you an idea of what happened there. And that's where, you remember the old Max Bygrave, he's long gone now, but he was a really good sing-along chap. He used to go to the Roxy from there when he was with her. That's where he was stationed, old Max Bygraves. Oh dear. But it gives you an idea what happened, what I can remember when I was a laddie. The old Anderson shelters, my God. I wonder how many's left. But that's all related to this. When you see these air raid shelters, of course, the school's there now. Further down is where the BA bowling club and club used to be. On the right used to be the BA. But when you pass it again, here we thought yourself, there is a lot of history in these. As I say, they're just lying more or less derelict now. Well, there's a wee story. Hope you found it interesting. Bye-de-doo.